story. Today's story, as I found the story, it kind of triggered other little, not little, but associated teachings I want to share with you. Hence, I'm stopping at 8:30. So the story is this: Rabbi Yoel relates that he heard that the following episode occurred. Rabbi Shlomo Chaim Kesselman was the renowned and much beloved Mashpia in Kfar Chabad. He passed away in the mid-70s. He has children, grandchildren, shluchim, mashpiyim, all over the world. He was a much beloved figure by young and old alike, and the true, really the prototype of what a mashpiyah has to be. He was a Chassidic Yid, a very elevated Jew, and at the same time totally involved with the Talmidim, loved them with all his heart, totally there for them. And he has the Bochim that learned in Kfar Chabad in those years, and there's a good number of years, all speak of him with the greatest reverence and love decades later. Rabbi Kaplan here, Rabbi Label Kaplan, learned in Kfar Chabad and Rabbi Shlomo Chaim, and I would be sure that his Fabrenget, he quotes him often. So Rabbi Yoel heard, he wasn't present, of course, Rabbi Yoel was never in Kfar Chabad, but he heard that once Rabbi Shlomo Chaim was Fabrenget, and someone that had come out of Russia recently was present. So this Yid relates about his life in Russia and said that he worked in a certain factory. This is under communism. From early morning, and he couldn't put on film because if they saw him putting on film, he'd lose his job, and that would, aside from losing his livelihood, that would bring to further persecution and so on. The family would suffer, right, under communism. So therefore, he's selling. The only place he could put on film without being caught was in the lavatory, the toilet, and that's what he did. He tried to put something between him and the actual lavatory when he put on film, but he was in the shirutim, in the toilet. So Shlomo Chaim heard this, became very emotional from the preciousness of a Yid and his mesiras nefesh and his to put on film, and then elaborated, and that was the theme of the Fabrengen from that point. Now, that Fabrengen, there was, as often, he attracted, especially at this Kislev and the big Fabrengens, Bochum came from other yeshivas, Misnagdi yeshivas, and I should say that over the course of time, some of their greatest, the Bochum became Chassidim through Rav Shlomo Chaim's Fabrengenish. A tremendous effect. But on this occasion, so I guess it must have been a Bochum, maybe it wasn't a Bochum, it doesn't say. And he says, but you can't do that. Api alocha, you're not allowed to daven in a toilet. How could he do that? And Rav Shlomo Chaim is extolling the virtue of this. So Rav Shlomo Chaim looks at him and says, and when there's a toilet in your head, you're allowed to put on film. Now, Rabbi Yoel, end of story. Now, Rabbi Yoel elaborates. This story is told in the context of Rabbi Yoel's, one of Fabrengen of Rabbi Yoel. And he says that we have to understand the story. Obviously, if a person will ask a Rav, are you allowed to put on film in the toilet? The answer is no. Although, by the way, nowadays, whatever it is, if it's covered, without going to, but the standard, open, the answer is no. So what's happening here? This fellow did not know this and did this with the purity of his heart. And this is very precious above. I think I once mentioned the story that one Shabbos morning, I'm coming out of my house, and one of the neighbors, he's an avid gardener. I mean, every single moment of his spare moment, when it's possible, it's already started the other day, he's out there in the garden. So I'm walking to shul, and he sees me, and I greet him, of course, and he says to me, Rabbi, I'm not doing any work. Now, of course, we all know that all the 39 malachas of Shabbos, largely, many of them are all involving planting and reaping and sowing and hoeing. They're primary malachas, which he was engaged in. And I promise you that when he said these words to me, Rabbi, I'm not working in a Shabbos, he lit up the heavens. And I won't even say halavai, my davening. I'm not even saying halavai because it's just not possible. That maybe it is possible, but it's just not there. That I should have anywhere close to the sincerity and purity and connect to Shabbos the way he did in those words, as he's plowing and weeding and doing all those things. So Rabbi is saying here, obviously, if you would ask me, Rabbi, can I do this? The answer is no, you can't do it on Shabbos. But he is doing it, and in so doing, I'm not working. It's Shabbos today, so I'm not working. This is my hobby, my pastime, my love. That is, there's the fifth Shulchan Aruch, in other words. There's 4 volumes of the Shulchan Aruch, but there's a 5th volume which is unwritten, and that's what this falls into. And for this one has to have the sensitivity to understand and not protest. He's working on Shabbos, Machal Shabbos, but on the contrary, to see in that the beauty of the neshama and the deepest connection between the Yid and the Eibush. Now, with Rabbi, when he elaborated on this, he shared another story from the Gemara that I want to share with you that will also lead to something else. And I hope you'll enjoy it. He's illustrating the point that it can be wrong halachically, but when done purely innocently, it can be beyond halacha. It's beyond halacha. Because as we're learning, and as we have learned, Neshamas Yisrael are rooted higher than Torah. That's why this is all possible. How can the Yid cause nachas to Hashem when he does something that put on tefillin in the toilet? Where the halacha says you can't, then there's no way out. The ultimate answer is the neshama is rooted higher. And if it's coming from the neshama, in its purest innocence, then like teshuvah, it's higher than Torah. So here's the story in the Gemara. The Gemara devotes pages to describing the death of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Of all the sages of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, he was the only one that was called Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. HaNasi means the prince or the leader. We find the word Nasi in the Torah. The respective leaders of all the tribes were called Nasiim. But he was called Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the absolute quintessential leader of the Jewish people. It's also of note that our Rebbe is the one that invoked that term. The previous Rebbe didn't describe Rebbes as Nasiim. But Rebbe did. That was his language. You're referring to the Frierdiker Rebbe as the Rebbe Nesidereinu. The Rebbe Teshver Nesidereinu. The Rebbe, my father-in-law, Nesidereinu. The Rebbe invoked this term Nasi. I'm not going to go into the whole explanation now. But this is all tied into Hanasi HaKol. It's a progressive and evolutionary progress towards Mashiach's coming, where all neshamas are one and connected to the Nasi to all neshamas. Hanasi HaKol. But anyway, that's not that Rebbe said this. I'm just suggesting this. This is why this language Nasi emerges now in the last generation. At any rate, back to the story of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, which the Gemara devotes pages to. For example, the Gemara says, this is all Gemara in Ksubas. The Gemara in Ksubas says that when he died, Kishanach Rebbe, the other Chachamim said, anyone who says that Rebbe died, this is a direct quote from the Gemara, should be pierced with a lance. And first explain what? Because they wanted the Yidden, the people to continue praying for his refuah shleima. And they were hoping that when they're praying for his refuah shleima, there'd be a Tchiyas HaMesim. And if the people, then first explain that. And if the people would be told that he died, they would stop saying the Tehillim until word got out that he passed away. But imagine, the Chacham, the other sages of the Mishnah, anyone who said Rebbe died, who reveals the secret, because it was happened in the home, who reveals this, should be pierced with a lance. Such strong words. And at the end, I'll tell you another beautiful story, which, anyway, so what story Rabbi brings to bring out this? So the Gemara says like this. There was a certain a person that washed clothes. And he would come every day to Rebbe's house. Rebbe was a very wealthy man who said before he died, he lifted up his 10 fingers and said he didn't benefit from Eilam Hazeh even from the smallest finger. He fasted for decades, had tremendous pain in his teeth, which he never showed. The Gemara says because of that, all the years, it was decades that he suffered terrible, which is the most painful, a toothache, no woman ever miscarried. The Gemara says extraordinary things about the Rebbe and his suffering and so on. Anyway, so this launderer used to come every day. On the day of his histalkus, he didn't come. Now the sages said that and he wasn't at the funeral. And the Chachamim said that anybody that attends a Rebbe's levaya is assured in a place in Eilam Haba. Period. No matter what's been going on previously. And he missed out on that. So he was so grief-stricken. It's not so clear whether he was grief-stricken because he didn't get that assurance of Eilam Haba, more grief-stricken that he wasn't there to show his respects to Rebbe and be that his levaya. That he went up onto the roof and he cast himself off. And then a heavenly voice went out and said that this launderer has a place in Eilam Haba. It's the same thing. Suicide. All the Mephoshim, and they're all scrambling to understand how this could be. And all kind of, he fell off, he didn't throw himself off, and then there's many other interesting answers. But the simple thing is he cast himself off. And the answer is because he didn't know this and he was overcome with grief and it was all part of his desire to honor Rebbe, heaven said it's okay, he has a place in the world to come. Again, this is this fifth volume of Shulchan Aruch that's not in the black and white, that needs a deep sensitivity to what is a Yid and what is a Neshama. What I wanted to conclude to tell you is the following, in connection with the Rebbe. Oh, I didn't bring it here. Anyway, okay. I thought I brought the Sefer. One of the meals that the Rebbe used to conduct, the Yom Tov meals. Okay, you know what? More than 1:45. So Be'ez Hashem will tell the story tomorrow. A story where the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, you see, until the Rebbetzin, the Frierdiker Rebbe's wife, passed away in 1970 on the 10th of Teves, the Rebbe ate all of the Yom Tov meals upstairs in the Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment. He sat at the left side, previous Rebbe's place, which still remained as it was, and the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, sat at his right, the older brother-in-law. And the Rashag, people didn't speak too much at the meal in the Rebbe's presence, but the Rashag, the older brother-in-law, did, and the Bochrim would put him up to asking questions of the Rebbe, which the Rebbe would answer. And the Rashag himself had questions. And this, for the most part, these conversations are recorded in 2 exquisite volumes, which they've entitled HaMelech B'Mesiboy, the king at his table. And it's very beautiful, conversations and questions that ensue at these Yom Tov meals for those almost 20 years. So tomorrow, God willing, we'll share with you a question that Rashag asked, all tying into the discussion of today, namely the discussion of Rebbe and what happened after his passing. So that is Hashem tomorrow. Thank you all.
Shkoyach.